Out of all of the videos I've ever made, these honestly are my top 10 vegan desserts, the ones that I make on repeat at home. They are so good and I can't wait for you to check them out. A guilt-free way to satisfy your sweet tooth without sacrificing too much on nutrition, at least these vegan desserts. Dessert number 1 is Mexican brownies. These ones have a little kick to them. I love them, maybe not so much my kids, but I think they're so good. Is it spicy? We have to make this one in a food processor because beans. You will add 1 can of rinsed and dried black beans, 1/4 of a cup of cocoa powder, 3/4 of a cup of applesauce, 1/3 a cup of chocolate chips, dairy-free. This is dessert, so you gotta add sugar. Of course, you can use coconut sugar instead. I'm just using raw cane sugar. Whatever sweetener you feel the most comfortable with. 1/2 cup of sugar of choice, and then 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. We'll add the dry ingredients just so they're incorporated really well. So this is 1/2 cup of that whole wheat pastry flour. Then you'll add 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Now this is where the Mexican flavors come out. I have a whole teaspoon of cinnamon. Okay, of cayenne pepper. Of course you can leave this out. If you choose to bring it in, this is 1/4 teaspoon. I'm gonna add about half of this, so about 1/8 teaspoon. It's the tiniest amount. It adds the most amazing, awesome little kick. Mix that really well. And we'll add those dry ingredients to the wet ingredients, mix everything together. You'll grab about either a 9x9 or a smaller pan, whatever small pan you have. You can use parchment paper, you can use foil. I just ended up spraying this pan because it made it easier. Add your batter to the pan. Now this recipe honestly is great for like a Cinco de Mayo party or any other Mexican themed party. These will bake at 350 for 20 minutes. I ended up having to put these back in for a few more minutes. It was more like 30 minutes instead of 20 minutes, but again, that can vary on your oven. Just to make this pretty, I'm gonna just dust it with some powdered sugar. Of course, you can skip this step. It is not necessary. It's just for looks. I had to pick up my kids from school. Do not eat. Dessert number 2 is a boxed white cake. Now this works with white cake or chocolate cake and even chocolate brownies. I love this hack that I'm about to show you. You will need a can of chickpeas and your favorite boxed cake along with a good blender. The recipe calls for 1 cup water, so we'll start by putting that in the blender. Next, you will replace the eggs and the oil with a can of rinsed and drained chickpeas. Add it to your blender, and then we will blend that up into a paste. Then you'll add your cake mix to a bowl. You can also do all of this in the blender if you don't want to dirty a bowl. We'll dump it out and add the chickpea mixture, and we'll mix everything together. Make sure I get all of that chickpea mixture so it's nice and moist. So that's mixed all the way through now. Now let's spray the pans. You have to spray the pans. There's no way around it. I mean, you can probably use parchment paper, but you got to do something or else they're gonna stick because there's no oil in these cakes. Dump it out. I'll just spread it out. We'll do the same over here. All right, now you will just bake these according to the directions on your package. So I had a friend stop by right as I was filming and stayed and chatted for a little bit. So usually that mixture is a lot more liquidy, but as it sat, it thickened. But just a heads up, it won't be as thick as that mixture was. Let's talk about frosting. There are so many different frosting options, and no, it does not require butter, but you need something else to make it thick. So here are my options. Let's start by making the classic tofu frosting with tofu and melted chocolate chips. For dairy-free chocolate chips, this is my favorite brand, or pretty much the only brand that's out there. Add that whole bag and melt it. We'll melt it for a minute first and then check on it every 30 seconds. Put it in the microwave for 1 minute, and then we'll add 30 seconds as needed. I'm also gonna take my tofu out of the packaging and put this in the microwave for 30 seconds. Take the chocolate chips out, mix these together, 30 seconds on the tofu. Because the chocolate chips are gonna be nice and melted, I don't want the cold tofu to freeze them up again. So we need the tofu warm. About 15 more seconds and then this should be done. Chocolate is done, tofu is warm. We'll add the warm tofu to the blender and the melted chocolate chips. All right, we'll blend those together. I used firm tofu, so you really need to blend this very well. It's nice to have a Vitamix. Look at that. It is nice and creamy, no tofu texture at all. Now you wanna taste this. Now to me, it's delicious. If you want it to be sweeter for your cake, like more of a really sweet frosting, you can add some powdered sugar to this as well. I might add a couple tablespoons of powdered sugar just to make it a little bit sweeter for the cake. But honestly, I could eat this like pudding every day. And when it comes to using tofu for frosting, you can actually just do tofu and powdered sugar and maybe a little bit of vanilla. Do not add any plant milk, and that frosting is going to be a lot more runny. The chocolate chips makes it hold together more like a typical frosting would. My next frosting hack is to use an avocado. You can make this chocolate frosting and cover up the color, or just like me, we can keep it green. Okay, so I'm gonna open 2 avocados. These avocados are actually perfect and not overly ripe, but that means they're harder to smash. So I'm gonna use my blender. Now that the 2 avocados are in the blender, we'll add about a teaspoon of vanilla. Perfect, and let's start to blend that up. It's okay if it's chunky because we're gonna add sugar next. Next, we'll add the powdered sugar. So just like your typical recipe that you would use butter in the past, we're just using an avocado in place of that butter. So you can pretty much follow your regular recipe. So that's about a cup, and I'm gonna add another cup. And then we'll add 1 more cup and start to blend it up. It's 2 avocados, 3 cups of powdered sugar. Okay, let's blend that up. Looks awesome, tastes yummy too. Next, you'll do a taste test. I mean, it tastes amazing because it tastes like sugar. I'm actually going to add another cup of powdered sugar. I just want it to be a little thicker, and it's not too sweet yet, and that should thicken everything up a little more. Perfect, that's a lot thicker. Look at this. It is awesome. This avocado frosting is going to go brown unless we put in the juice of a lemon, so do not skip this part. Let's go ahead and put it in. Yum. All right, let's put it in a bowl. Now online, you'll see lots of variations of avocado frosting. And the cool thing is avocados can be swapped out for butter at a 1-to-1 ratio. I put in less powdered sugar in this recipe than what most recipes call for. Some recipes will call for up to 3 to 3.5 cups of powdered sugar for 1 avocado. This recipe was just 2 cups of powdered sugar for each avocado. So if you want it thicker, if you want it sweeter, then you can add more powdered sugar. And if you're worried about it browning, or if it looks like it's browning in any way, you can add a little bit more lemon juice. Make sure you're not using lemon juice from a bottle, that it needs to be freshly squeezed lemon juice if possible. You can also add chocolate cocoa powder if you want it to be chocolatey. There's so many options here. So let's put the cake together. Because we made sure to grease the cake, it's perfect. It is all set up. We're gonna take this chocolate frosting and put it in between. It's kind of been sitting out for a while, so it's a little thick. Of course, you can use this same cake recipe with any of your favorite frostings. You can buy store-bought frosting, but I wanted to give you all the options. All right, let's put the top on and let's frost it with our green frosting on top. Again, if you don't like the color green, you can always use food coloring, but avocados are just the perfect substitute for butter when it comes to frosting. It's healthier for you than any vegan butter out there. Awesome. Let's add some sprinkles. Now it looks like an Easter cake. Perfect. If the chocolate frosting gets too hard, you can just put it in the microwave again to soften it up, which I'm gonna do before I frost the cupcakes. Delicious cake, all made with beans. How many times have they asked if they could eat this? They've literally been staring at this for like hours. Dancing.
Best day ever!
Look at that deliciousness.
This white cake is awesome. So good.
Dessert number 3 are these delicious chickpea blondies. We'll add a can of rinsed and drained chickpeas, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Then it's 3/4 cup of sugar of your choice, 1/3 cup of whole wheat pastry flour, and 1/4 cup of applesauce. We'll finish this off with 1/4 cup of peanut butter. Of course, you can use any type of nut butter, but if you have a nut allergy, instead of peanut butter, you can do 3 tablespoons of olive oil. And then we'll blend. We'll add 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. Add to a 9x9 pan with some parchment paper. And just for looks, we're gonna sprinkle a few more chocolate chips on the top. I forgot to mention that I'm using salted peanut butter. If you are using regular peanut butter that doesn't have salt, you'll want to add about 1/4 teaspoon of salt to this as well. So just keep in mind. This will go into the oven at 350 for 30 minutes. All right, chickpea blondies are done. They may be slightly raw in the center, but it's totally fine. They will finish cooking after you take them out of the oven. What would you rate it out of 10?
I would rate it like an 8 out of 10.
I'll take it. Dessert number 4 are Buckeyes. These are so good, like ridiculously delicious. To a food processor, you will add 1 can of rinsed and drained chickpeas, about a cup of dates, make sure they're pitted dates, which is anywhere between 12 to 15 dates, depending on the dates you're using. Make sure that every single one of them is pitted. And a 1/4 cup of peanut butter. This is going to cover the taste of the chickpeas. So you won't even notice that there's chickpeas in these. These Buckeyes are super high in fiber with the dates and the chickpeas, so make sure not to overdo it and eat all of them at once, or else you will have consequences. And then it's 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Awesome. Now all we need to do is process this. You will have to press it down a couple times. We want to make sure this is as smooth as possible. This is super thick and there's going to be a lot of starting and stopping to mix everything up until it's smooth. As you can see, it's nice and smooth. All right, we'll scoop these out and then I'll roll them into beautiful balls. This mixture actually tastes really good. You'd be surprised. Dates and chickpeas with peanut butter, you would never know. It's so yummy. Now these need to harden up a little bit more before we dip them into chocolate. So I'm going to place them in the freezer for about 20 minutes. Just so that they get a little bit harder, easier to handle when I'm dipping them into the melted chocolate. All right, let's put these in the freezer, 20 minutes. While the Buckeyes are in the freezer, let's melt some chocolate. You'll add 1 cup of dairy-free chocolate chips to a bowl, and then we will melt these in the microwave for 1 minute. Take it out of the microwave, you'll mix, and then add it for another 30 seconds. Perfectly melted. Now let's grab the Buckeyes. You can take a toothpick. I'm gonna use a fruit skewer because that's all I have. And then we'll just dip it in and then place it on and then just kind of close up that hole. Alternatively, you could just use your hands. You're only going halfway down anyway, so you have a little bit of room. It may get a little chocolatey, but that's okay. And they are done. Seriously, these dessert balls are perfect for a neighbor who just had a baby. Lots of fiber, super filling, super yummy. These are so good. You would never guess that this is made out of chickpeas, dates, and peanut butter. With some chocolate, seriously, I would even give these to a friend. They're that good. Hey, real quick, before we get to the rest of the recipes, have you signed up for my free 1-week meal guide? It is a week full of whole food, plant-based, vegan recipes that are so delicious, and I even include a shopping list. You will love them. And there's a couple dessert recipes in there too. So make sure to grab your guide with the link below. Dessert number 5 is coconut nut bars. These are so good. To a food processor, you will add 1 cup of raw, unsalted cashews. You can sub this for any other nut of choice if you have allergies to cashews. Then you'll add 3/4 cup of oats. These are quick oats, but you can use old-fashioned oats as well. Next is 1 cup of pitted dates, which is about 12 dates. Then you'll add a tablespoon of coconut cream or coconut oil and a pinch of salt. Just a little bit, about 1/4 teaspoon. Just gonna eyeball it. All right, let's mix everything together. Once it's all mixed up, you'll add some parchment paper to a small pan, and then we'll add the mixture. If your mixture does not stick together easily, then you may need to add just about a tablespoon of water. Take that out and then just add it to our pan. It all depends on how soft or hard your dates are. If your dates are pretty hard, you may need to add some water. Perfect. Now, just a little tip, you can use the back of your cup to smash it down. You want everything to be nice and even, your back of your measuring cup. Next, you'll add 1/2 cup of dairy-free chocolate chips to a bowl with a tablespoon of either coconut oil or coconut cream. And then we'll microwave that for 1 minute. And we'll mix that together. The thing about the coconut cream or the coconut oil is that it makes it really easy to spread. Just keep mixing until everything is melted evenly. If you need a couple more seconds in the microwave, you can do that. I just find if I mix it a little longer, everything starts to melt. Then you'll just pour that chocolate on top of the bars. Make sure it's nice and even. Again, you can see how easy it is to spread. If you want to do this oil-free or even coconut cream-free, you can. It's just harder to spread everything around, but it is possible, and you don't get that added coconut taste. And then we will top this off with some shredded coconut. And then we will freeze this for 1 hour in the freezer. Okay, we'll pull these out of the freezer. Look at how amazing this looks, so yummy. All right, let's cut them up. You're recording yourself eating them. Future YouTube star, look at that. You like them? All right, let's test it out. These are really good. These are rich, delicious. Good, huh? You want one? Oh, you're already eating one. Dessert number 6 is a chocolate mug cake. This is such a perfect dessert when you've had a long hard day and you don't want to spend a ton of time making a huge dessert. One serving hits the spot. It's so good. Here's the recipe. It's real yummy. All right, you will grab your favorite mug and then add the dry ingredients together first, which is 3 tablespoons of whole wheat flour. This is again white wheat. Then 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder, 1 teaspoon of flaxseed, 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and then just about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. So just a dash of salt, a little pinch. We'll mix all those dry ingredients together, just like you would mix a cake, just a mini version. All right, next we will add 3 tablespoons of maple syrup. It's gotta be sweet, you know? 1 tablespoon of applesauce, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, and 2 tablespoons of plant milk. Your favorite kind. If you have sweetened, use sweetened just for an added sweetness. Otherwise, anything works. Now we'll mix all that together and then add in some of our mix-ins. From here you have an option of adding some chocolate chips, about a tablespoon or 2, and then about a tablespoon of crushed walnuts if you would like. I like walnuts in my brownies and my chocolate cakes. I think it's yummy. We'll mix that in and then we'll place it in the microwave for about 1 to 1.5 minutes, just depending on your microwave, so keep a close watch. We'll start with 1 minute and check on it. Look at that, about 15 more seconds. And then we'll top it with more walnuts and chocolate chips. All right, let's eat. Oh my gosh, nothing better than your own personal mug cake. It's so good. You can also add things like peanut butter on top or any other of your favorite chocolate cake toppings. You gotta try this one. Dessert number 7 is one that probably gets made more than any other recipe in our entire house. My daughter learned how to make these chocolate chip cookies and she makes them on the regular, at least a couple times a week. And I love that it only makes 12 cookies at a time, so you're not making a huge batch and overeating. Definitely try this one. My 9-year-old daughter has this recipe memorized. We'll start by blending some oats into flour. Super easy, just put your regular whole rolled oats or any type of oats into the blender. We'll mix the dry ingredients. It's 1 cup of oat flour, 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, 3 tablespoons of white sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Mix those quick. Then instead of an egg, we use 2 tablespoons of any type of plant milk. And instead of butter, we use 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then of course, you need some vanilla. This is about 1/4 of a teaspoon. Now, it's going to be dry and you need to do a lot of mixing until it incorporates because you don't want to add too much liquid or else these will turn out to be pancakes. So just take some time, incorporate all of that liquid until it forms cookie dough. You may even want to use your hands if needed. You want it to be able to form into a ball. Then 1/3 a cup of chocolate chips, dairy-free chocolate chips to keep these gluten-free, dairy-free, and vegan. Preheat the oven to 325. And we will form these into small balls so that we can get at least 12 out of this big ball. I love this batch because it's just enough to quench your sweet tooth without making so many that you overeat. This will go in the oven for 10 minutes. These are done. Look at how perfect and awesome these look. These are really good. You want some? Sure. Hey kids, I made more cookies. Dessert number 8 is super healthy chocolate chip cookies. So if you really are all about not only vegan, but whole food, plant-based, these are probably the healthiest chocolate chip cookies you will find. They're really yummy. Now the base of this recipe is actually dates and walnuts. So you'll definitely need a food processor to put this one together. I'll also be using some of our leftover oat flour from earlier. We'll start by adding 1.5 cup of walnuts, then 1 packed cup of dates, 1 cup of oat flour, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon ground flax seeds, about 1/3 cup of water, and about 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. Now we'll mix everything together. Then we'll finish these off with 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. Just a really quick chop together. You'll want to preheat your oven to 350 while you scoop up the chocolate chip cookies. Now with the chocolate chips, make sure they're dairy-free, especially if you are giving them to someone who has any dairy allergies. These are my favorite kind of dairy-free chocolate chips. Those will bake for about 12 minutes. For dessert number 9, my husband absolutely loves key lime pie, and I was thrilled to be able to make this vegan version. It is super yummy and filling, and healthier than regular key lime pie. We'll make the crust of the pie by adding 9 pitted medjool dates to a food processor. You'll add 1.5 tablespoons of water. Next is 3/4 cup of shredded coconut. This is already sweetened. And 3/4 cup of almond flour. 1 teaspoon of coconut sugar and 1 teaspoon of nutritional yeast. I know this sounds weird, but it just adds a little bit more depth of flavor. And then another 1/2 teaspoon of salt. It should form a ball just like this. Taste it just to make sure you like it. Now you'll take that ball, smush it into your pie tin. If you wanted to, you could spray it down if you're worried about it sticking, but I don't worry about it. And you'll want to get up on the edges as well. All right, crust is ready. We'll put the crust in the freezer to firm up. Now let's make the key lime pie filling. You need 3/4 cup of coconut cream. Now I do not have coconut cream right now, so this is just regular full fat coconut milk. I put this in the freezer for about 30 minutes so that the cream can separate from the liquid. So as you'll see, I'm just scooping up the cream part. The thicker, the better. So here's about 1 tablespoon of coconut oil just to help thicken things up since I did not have the actual coconut cream. I did have coconut cream, and then my husband made some amazing Thai food, and I think he actually used the cream instead of coconut milk. So that's why when I went to look for it, it wasn't there this morning. Moving on. Here is 1.5 cups of cashews. 1/2 cup of maple syrup, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, pinch of salt, and the juice of 4 limes. Of course, my lemon juicer broke right before this, so I'm doing this all by hand. Okay, now let's mix everything together. Then we take the pie crust out of the freezer and we add the cream on top. Now this will thicken over time. We need to put it in the fridge or even the freezer for a shorter period of time. Freezer for about 20 to 30 minutes or the fridge for a solid hour. I'm putting this in the freezer so it's ready when my kids get home from school.
1,000 people in our family.
There's 1,000 people in our family?
Yeah.
Hey, excuse me. Someone's a little excited to eat the pie. Everyone's excited about the pie. And for dessert number 10, it is chocolate peanut butter tofu pie. Don't let the name scare you. This is actually a super easy pie to put together, and it is incredibly delicious. Everyone in my family loves this one, and it's so easy. So definitely try it out. Let's make the crust first. You'll add 1/2 cup of almonds, 1/4 cup of shredded coconut, and 1/4 cup of oats. And you'll add 1/2 cup of walnuts and 1/4 cup of either honey or maple syrup. We'll add the crust to our pie pan, flatten it all out. Now let's make this super simple chocolate peanut butter filling. We will melt 1 cup of dairy-free chocolate chips in the microwave for about 60 seconds. You'll only use 3/4 cup in the actual filling, and then the rest goes for decoration. And then you just mix for a while. Be patient. You don't need to microwave it more. You just kind of patiently mix it around until everything's melted. You will want to reserve about 1/4 cup of this melted chocolate, and I just put it in a plastic bag, and then I'll use it to drizzle on top of the pie at the end. To the blender, you will add 1 box of silken tofu, 3/4 cup of melted chocolate chips, 1/4 cup of peanut butter, and then just 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Right, then we'll add the filling to the pie crust. Then we'll decorate the pie with the rest of the chocolate. Any pattern works. You'll put this in the fridge for either 1 hour or the freezer for about 1/2 hour before it's ready to serve. I'm actually gonna put it in the freezer because my kids are gonna be home from school soon and I know they're gonna want some. Okay, what do you guys think?
It's good.
1 out of 5. 7.
4. 5 out of a 10.
4. If you loved my top 10 dessert recipes, then I know you'll love my dessert hack video. So make sure to check that one out too. That way it can save you time, energy, and money to make more nutritious vegan desserts. Try it out.